Everywhere you look online, Lacari is getting hit from all sides. Clips are spreading, people are digging into his past, and the conversation isn't slowing down at all. Even his girlfriend wants nothing to do with him anymore.
I am not going to associate with Lacari. I'm not going to be involved with anything Lacari.
It's gotten so intense that even people close to him are starting to speak out. At one point, his ex-girlfriend steps in and begins revealing things about him that were never meant to be public.
Diddled as a kid by a family member, and then finding out on the World Wide Web that's the sick shit he jerked off to.
Diddled?
In the comment section of Lacari's videos, from as far back as 17 years ago, you'll find comments like, "Wild that this video's older than the kids he was watching. This video is too old for Lacari. You're going to jail." Lacari has spent years building his place on the platform, collaborating with major creators and pulling in thousands of viewers on a regular basis. But unlike most streamers who slowly fade out over time, his downfall didn't happen gradually. It happened all at once, in the span of a single live stream. Everything he had built over nearly a decade came crashing down, turning him from a well-established creator into one of the most controversial names on the platform almost overnight. In one moment, he opened a notepad file on stream that revealed something he shouldn't have had, and clearly never intended for anyone to see. And within minutes, that moment spread across the internet, turning his stream into a live collapse, and what makes his story stand out isn't just that it happened, it was how everything unraveled with thousands watching live.
Like lollies.
Yes. Oh no!
Before all of this happened, Lacari was just a guy who had been on the internet for a very long time. His real name, Trammell Tennyson, and he was born on June 30th, 1989 in Texas, which means at the time everything went down, he was already in his mid-30s. Not some new kid on the platform, not someone who just blew up overnight, but someone who had been around long enough to understand how all of this works. From what can be traced, Lacari was already uploading content as far back as 2007, when he was just 17 years old, which places him right at the early stages of online gaming content before streaming even became what it is today. Back then, his content was simple, mostly gameplay videos centered around MMOs, the kind of games that require long hours, grinding, and a lot of patience, which already says a lot about the type of player he was. He played games like Ragnarok Online early on, and over time moved between different titles like Phantasy Star Online, Arcade, and Terra, constantly staying within that same MMO space rather than jumping between genres. But even though he had been uploading for years, it wasn't consistent. There were long gaps between uploads, sometimes years apart, which made his early presence feel more like a side hobby than something he was seriously trying to turn into a career at the time. So at this stage, Lacari wasn't a streamer, he wasn't building a brand, and he definitely wasn't someone people were paying attention to. He was just another person on the internet, playing games, uploading whenever he felt like it, with no real sign yet of what this would eventually turn into. At this point in his life, content creation was never supposed to be the plan. Lacari wasn't trying to become a streamer, and he wasn't chasing internet fame. His focus was on something much more stable. He planned to work in IT, build a normal career, and keep gaming as something he did on the side.
Originally, I wasn't going to be a streamer. Not at all.
What were you originally gonna be?
I was really just going to work in IT and play like games.
For him, games were just a way to relax, something to enjoy with friends and his guild, not something he expected to turn into a job. That mindset carried into the early days of his streaming. Around 2016 to 2017, Lacari started streaming, but not in any serious way. It wasn't consistent and it wasn't strategic. In fact, at one point he was streaming only about once a year. There was no schedule, no real push to grow, and no indication that this would eventually become his main source of income. But then something happened that completely changed the direction of everything. During one of his streams, a friend hosted him with around 300 viewers.
Recording footage for my boy Potent for DFO, and then Mac hosted me for 300 viewers, my guildie. And then that kind of boosted jump-started my streaming career. Because when he hosted me with 300 viewers, I started talking to everyone. And they were like, oh my god, it's the guild leader of Man Up.
Now, for an established streamer, that might not seem like much, but for someone who wasn't even taking streaming seriously, it was a turning point. For the first time, he experienced what it felt like to have a real audience watching him live, and that moment kinda shifted his perspective. After that, Lacari started taking streaming seriously. This casual and occasional thing began to turn into something more consistent. He started putting in the time, showing up more often, and treating it like something that could actually go somewhere. The results came quickly. Within a short period of time, he managed to achieve Twitch Partner, something that usually takes months or even years for most streamers. For Lacari, it happened in about 2 weeks. And just like that, what started as something he barely cared about was actually beginning to turn into a real career. As Lacari began taking streaming more seriously, his growth became closely tied to one specific game, Black Desert Online. At the time, BDO was one of the most popular MMO games on Twitch, and Lacari didn't just play it casually, he became deeply involved in the game's community, eventually rising to become a leader of a guild known as Man Up. In MMO culture, guild leadership isn't just a title. It means organizing players, managing conflicts, and leading large groups in competitive environments. That role alone gave him visibility and authority within the game's ecosystem. From there, his stream began to grow alongside the game. Lacari became one of the top streamers in the Black Desert Online category, pulling in consistent viewership and building a dedicated audience. But what made him stand out wasn't skill. In fact, it was the opposite. Lacari wasn't known for being particularly good at the games he played. He wasn't a high-level competitive player, and he didn't position himself as one. Instead, his streams were unpredictable and heavily personality-driven.
Oh!
Yeah, personality-driven. Things would go wrong, or moments of him just going crazy on stream, and that unpredictability became the appeal.
So you pull up your fucking black spear and you're like, hey, bitch, fucking fail this shit. Fucking fail these fucking gloves, bitch. Fail, keep fail. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, you like it. You like that. You like that, don't.
While other streamers built their platforms on skill and performance, Lacari built his on personality. His value wasn't in winning games, it was in how he reacted to them, how he interacted with chat, and how his streams felt like anything could happen at any moment. As Lacari's stream continued to grow, his position on Twitch wasn't just defined by his content anymore, it was also shaped by the people around him. At some point, he became closely connected to a group of streamers based in Austin, Texas, a scene that over time had turned into one of the most influential circles on the platform. This wasn't just a random group of creators, these were some of the biggest names on Twitch, people who consistently pulled in large audiences and had the ability to bring others into the spotlight just by association. Lacari began collaborating with streamers like Miskiff, Soda Poppin', and Asmongold. These weren't one-off interactions, he was around them, streaming with them, appearing in the same spaces, and gradually becoming part of that ecosystem, and that mattered. Because on Twitch, who you're around can be just as important as what you do. Being connected to that Austin circle meant more exposure, more opportunities, and a level of credibility that's hard to build alone. It placed Lacari in rooms that most streamers never get access to. From the outside, it looked like he had made it. That became even more clear when he started showing up in community-driven events. He participated in things like Camp Canute, a fitness-focused streaming event that brought together multiple creators, and also took part in group activities like the OnlyFans World of Warcraft Guild, where several streamers played together under a shared banner. Within his community, Lacari had also developed a reputation. He was often described as a gooner, a term tied to excessive consumption of explicit animated content. This wasn't something hidden or exposed later, it was something he openly leaned into as part of his persona. He didn't shy away from it.
Do you like lollies?
Yes.
Oh no!
And it went beyond just jokes or comments. He was known to keep large, organized folders of this type of content on his computer. Not random downloads, but structured collections. This detail, while not widely discussed outside his immediate audience at the time, was something that people close to him were aware of, like his ex-girlfriend.
You're not gonna tell them everything, are you?
So, yesterday, I asked Lacari how much of a degen he truly is. Because I don't think he's actually that degenerate. I think he's like faking it. And he was like, no, I'm definitely a degen. And I was like, okay, prove it. Screen share me your folder. And he was like, are you
Lacari, you're getting cucked, bro.
I want to see
Another
it.
day in the
Show
office for
me-
you, though.
Show me the folder. And he spent like 20 minutes compiling, and it turns out he's got like 10 different folders, because what happens is after a certain while he abandons a folder and starts a new one. So he has pictures from like 6 years ago that he doesn't even remember he has. And so
I'll deal with
we
this.
spent like an hour or two going through
Prove your
6 years of pictures.
feeling my soul.
6 years.
At the time, it was just seen as part of his personality, but right now, it's being looked at very differently. Also at that time, in September of 2025, Texas had officially banned certain types of explicit animated content, including lolicon. That matters because Lacari was based in Texas, meaning anything tied to that category wasn't just controversial, it could potentially cross into illegal territory depending on what exactly was involved. So when the incident happened just a few months later, the timing made everything worse. On January 22nd, Lacari went live like he normally would. There was nothing unusual about the stream at first. He was playing games, interacting with chat, and moving through his usual routine. Then at some point during the stream, he opened Notepad on his computer. He was probably trying to write something down, likely related to the game he was playing. It was kind of small, forgettable action that happens on screen all the time. But instead of a blank file or a quick note, something else appeared on screen. A cloud drive link was visible, and from that point on, everything began to spiral. Within moments of the notepad being opened, viewers began making claims about what the link contained. According to people in the chat and those who later discussed it online, the files were allegedly tied to highly disturbing categories. Within minutes, viewers began accessing the link themselves. This wasn't something that stayed contained within the stream. As soon as people realized what might be in that file, they started sharing clips, screenshots, and discussions across multiple platforms. Some claimed the content involved minors, others pointed to references that suggested family-related material, and there were also mentions of animal-related content. On top of that, the presence of hentai and lolicon themes was also brought up, which, given the legal context in Texas at the time, made everything even more serious. And as more people became aware of what had just happened, the stream itself started to grow. What had been a normal stream sitting at around 1,000 viewers suddenly began to spike. People weren't tuning in for the content anymore, they were tuning in to witness what was unfolding in real time. The numbers climbed rapidly, reaching close to 10,000 viewers as the situation continued to spiral. What made the situation even more confusing was how Lacari responded in the moment. After the notepad appeared on screen, he didn't immediately panic, he didn't end the stream, and he didn't address it in a serious way. Instead, he carried on like nothing had happened, continuing to play and interact with chat as if everything was normal. And that decision changed everything. Because while he was acting like it was nothing, his audience was reacting in real time.
File.
Well, I guess the ones.
Even with that, he kept streaming for hours. And the longer the stream went on, the worse it became. More people joined, more clips spread, and the accusations only grew louder. At that point, it wasn't just confusion anymore, it had turned into full-blown public scrutiny happening live. Eventually, Lacari started responding, but even then, his explanations didn't settle anything.
Apologize for what? I didn't fucking do anything. This is gonna be a hard stream, bro.
Two girls at the gym talking
This is gonna be a hard stream.
I wonder why.
Why? What happened?
I'll lawyer up, bro. I'm open to an investigation.
At first, he claimed he didn't know what the file was. Then he suggested that someone else might have sent it to him. After that, the explanation shifted again, this time saying it could have been automatically downloaded from a website. When that didn't convince people, he leaned into the idea that it might have been caused by a virus. And at another point, he even suggested it could be some kind of Windows Notepad glitch. Each explanation came one after the other, and instead of clearing things up, it only made the situation look more uncertain.
Joking about it? What the fuck, dude? What are you just writing your own narrative? You're just writing your own narrative, man. What the fuck else do you want me to do? What do you want to do? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do anything. I didn't fucking do anything. That's why I'm not fucking crying and sobbing, bitch.
At one point during the stream, Lacari reopened the same file again. This alone contradicted the earlier idea that it had just appeared accidentally or had already been removed. If the file was gone, there would be nothing to reopen, but it was still there, and it was accessible. That raised even more questions. On top of that, people noticed that there wasn't just one file. There were multiple tabs and documents visible, which suggested this wasn't a one-time thing or a random download. It looked more like something that had been stored and organized over time, and as viewers kept watching, the situation began to unravel even further. Instead of stabilizing things, Lacari started making decisions that only made him look worse. He reopened the file live on stream, drawing even more attention to it. At another point, he created new blank notepad files, which many viewers believed was an attempt to push older, more suspicious files further down the recent list so they wouldn't be visible. Then something else happened. While still live, he began looking up information about the legality of certain types of content in Texas. For many, that didn't come across as someone trying to clear confusion. It looked like someone trying to understand how serious the situation might be, and then he said something that stuck with people. At one point, he mentioned that he might just delete his hard drive. That single statement shifted the tone even more because, to a lot of viewers, that didn't sound like something someone would say if there was nothing to hide. By now, it wasn't just the wider audience reacting, even the people closest to him were starting to distance themselves. Moderators began removing themselves from his channel mid-stream. One left a lengthy message right there in the chat saying, "End your stream, dude. This isn't funny. This isn't a joke or something you can laugh off. I hope that this somehow was a mistake or a virus, but it's looking real bad. You need to get help. I'm unmodding myself and unassociating with you. Peace." People who were supposed to be helping manage the situation were stepping away in real time. Friends who were present started questioning him directly, trying to get answers while everything was unfolding live. As the situation spread beyond his stream, it didn't take long before other creators started reacting. And these weren't small streamers. These were some of the biggest names on Twitch, people Lacari had been associated with, people he had streamed with, people who knew him. At first, some of them didn't fully understand how serious the situation was. Asmongold, for example, initially reacted without knowing the full context.
That's just really bad timing. It was. I didn't even know what it was. Right? I see like, okay, I thought it was like some random porn, and it's like, then I wake up this morning and I'm like, oh, fuck, right? But yeah, that's how it is, right? And as always, didn't do the research. Well, I guess in this case, maybe I shouldn't have.
But as more details came out and the severity became clearer, that tone changed. He distanced himself from the situation and made it clear he didn't want to be involved.
I remember last night, like, I didn't know really what was going on, right? But so we literally did a podcast with Lacari. I'm not even kidding you. It was not yesterday. It was the day before. It was literally the day before yesterday. We did a podcast with them. And like last night, I was like, oh, we need to for sure upload this. But now I'm looking at what happened. I'm like, oh, maybe not, right? And so, yeah, wow, holy shit. Well, I mean, if he gets investigated, they're going to find out all of his links. And so I say, you know what? I welcome that. You know, I have nothing to do with it. So why would I be worried? So that's my outlook on it. It's not a big deal to me. Obviously, I'm not involved, and so I had nothing to do with it. So, yeah, sure. Hey, talk.
Others were much more direct. Miskiff, who had also been connected to Lacari, reacted strongly when his name started getting dragged into the situation. At one point, he even mentioned the possibility of legal action, making it clear that he didn't want to be associated with what was happening and pushing back against any attempt to link him to it.
Why would you stream it?
Actually, Miskiff linked it to me. He did.
Okay, that is absolutely defamation, and I will be suing you for that. You literally just called me a pedophile. If you don't think I'm suing you, Lacari, for everything you just have, you're fucking out of your mind. That's insane what you just said. Insane.
Soda Poppin's reaction was even more straightforward. He didn't try to analyze it or soften it, he simply expressed disgust at the situation, reflecting what a lot of people were already feeling at that point.
I mean, it didn't take long for me to realize, can't be talking with this person no more, this is not good. So, that's about where that's at. I thought about messaging him, being like, dude, you fucking but that's, again, 20-foot pole, 30, 500-foot pole distance. I'm sorry.
And then there was Moist Critical. When he spoke on it, he described the situation as disgusting, which carried weight given his position as someone who often breaks down internet controversies in a measured way. For him to label it that directly signaled just how bad things looked from the outside.
Oh. Yeah, I just learned about the whole Lacari thing. Today on stream, he accidentally leaked his notepad that was filled with despicable and disgusting shit.
K-feeds! Let me at least add Wade to the list of champions that I like.
The links are censored there, but apparently a lot of people have taken the plunge into looking up a lot of what was revealed here through the Lacari leaks, and what they have found is beyond heinous. Like teens and animals, it's bad. Like really, really bad. And after this happened, his stream was calling him out on it. He streamed for multiple hours after this happened. And then he was trying to defend himself by saying like, oh, this was sent to me, or oh, it was actually a virus, or this and that. A very interesting, innovative defense strategy that could make a lawyer throw himself down a set of stairs.
As everything continued to unfold, the consequences quickly moved beyond public opinion and into real, measurable losses. The first major hit came from the platforms themselves. Twitch, the platform where Lacari had built his entire career, issued a ban that lasted around 30 days. At the same time, Kick took a much harder stance. Unlike Twitch, which left the door open for a return, Kick issued a permanent ban. There was no temporary suspension, no second chance. From their side, the decision was final. And while the platform consequences were immediate, the social consequences cut even deeper. The people around him started pulling away. Friends who had once streamed with him and shared the same space began to distance themselves. Some publicly made it clear that they didn't want to be associated with him anymore. Others simply stopped interacting altogether. Then it became more personal. His ex-girlfriend addressed the situation and distanced herself, making it clear she had no connection to what had happened. And even his current girlfriend, someone who would have been closest to him during that time, also stepped away.
I had no idea. The most that I know is like what he told you guys, which is I have like 3 terabytes of on like a hard drive, and I am not going to associate with Lacari. I'm not going to be involved with anything Lacari. After this problem, I have decided that this is for him.
At that point, it wasn't just his career taking a hit, but his entire circle collapsing around him. After going silent for a while, Lacari eventually released a statement addressing the situation. In it, he denied consuming any illegal content. He made it clear, at least from his perspective, that nothing he had engaged with crossed that line. But at the same time, he did acknowledge that the situation had been handled poorly. He admitted that the way he reacted on stream, the way he responded in the moment, and the way everything unfolded only made things worse. He didn't fully back down, but he also didn't stand firm in the way people might have expected. Instead, he tried to position it somewhere in the middle. Part of that explanation included a decision to step away and seek help. Lacari stated that he had entered some form of rehab or recovery process specifically to deal with an addiction tied to the type of content he had been consuming. This wasn't framed as a legal issue, but more as a personal one, something he needed to address privately. He also made another key claim. According to him, the files that people saw weren't illegal, they just looked bad. In other words, the issue wasn't necessarily what the content was, but how it appeared at first glance and how it was interpreted by viewers. But for many people, that explanation didn't fully resolve anything because beyond the specifics of what was or wasn't in those files, there was a broader conversation happening around behavior and patterns. The idea of addiction became a central part of that discussion. There's a commonly understood pattern when it comes to explicit content consumption, where over time, repeated exposure can lead to desensitization. What once felt extreme starts to feel normal, and in response, people begin seeking out more intense or more niche material to achieve the same level of stimulation. It becomes a cycle, and in that context, some people viewed Lacari's situation not just as a single incident, but as part of a larger progression. Not necessarily proof of anything specific, but an example of how unchecked habits can escalate over time into something far more serious. Whether that explanation was accurate or not, it became part of how the story was understood moving forward. After the stream and the initial backlash, Lacari largely disappeared from the public eye. He isn't active in the same way, he isn't streaming, and there were no major updates coming from him beyond the statement he had already made. And roughly after a month, Twitch lifted the ban. Lacari's channel was reinstated. And just like that, he technically had access to his platform again. Regardless of whether he would ever stream again, his reputation has already taken a hit that is difficult to recover from. The audience he built over years now see him differently, and in cases like this, perception tends to stick. So even though the platform gave him a second chance, the internet hasn't, and that difference is what ultimately defines how this story ends.